That's,
Right.
that's right. We only have one regular board meeting in April. Thank
Which
you.
is the 26th.
Yeah, 20, toward the end of the month.
23rd.
23rd, so it's on the calendar.
Where do you see the 23rd?
23rd of April.
Well,
we-
that's our regular board. meeting.
Right.
Yeah, actually,
Do we need the study session on the 16th?
we could have it on the 16th, or we could have it on the 2nd, either way.
Do we need both dates?
Well, if we have it on the 2nd, you know, if you're available, we can plan 3 and always eliminate one if we don't need it.
Yeah.
You want to do that?
Same thing's gonna be for me on the 2nd, I can tell you that, so.
Yeah, I work all
6th.
3 of those Mondays, but I can always see if I can get off.
Okay. Well, so right now, let's circle the 5th, the 2nd, and the 16th.
Is another night better for you, John?
Yeah, I'm available.
You know, it all varies.
16th.
I mean, we should try and get it where everybody can be here. If we
Right.
need to go to a different night.
I mean, I can just take
I'm
time.
I'm
flexible.
flexible.
I can just take, like tonight, I can take 3-4 hour blocks from work.
Yeah, usually Mondays work the best, just because
Right.
people kind of keep those open. But I'm not opposed if anybody wants to. But it sounds like we've got consensus on the 2nd. Again, you want a 5 o'clock start on that time, you said, right?
Yeah, 'cause I gotta be both them days, I gotta be someplace at 7 o'clock, so.
Gotcha. So.
But the 16th, that wouldn't be a problem to have it at 6.
No, I can make arrangements for that.
Okay.
That would be no problem.
You'll remind us when you send us the agendas of the start times.
What about on
Does that
March,
change?
what about on March 5th? What time would that be?
That's a
That's
5
a
o'clock
5
to
p.m.
6:30.
Okay, now April 2nd's gonna be a 5 o'clock one?
5
too?
to 6:30.
Yeah.
And the
So
16th would be
6 o'clock.
tentatively.
Yeah, 6 o'clock till whatever it takes.
Not unless you think we need more time and start it at 5, it doesn't.
In these meetings, we can put them on the website as well.
Yeah.
So that there's plenty of
Should be.
Good idea.
public notice that we're discussing the budget.
Yeah.
I think we can.
We're gonna have,
Yep.
Yeah.
we're gonna have them recorded,
Okay.
right? They'll be recorded because that way the public can see them, right?
Yes.
And recorded.
Well, we are talking about the
Just type it
budget,
away.
so, I
Right.
mean, the community's gotta know about it.
Yep, no, you're right.
So if we can make sure we let
We're only
Steve or
acknowledging
Steve.
our recorder over there.
Well, this way we can let Steve or Steve know.
Right.
Okay, so just to revisit, we will schedule study sessions for March 5th at 5 o'clock, April 2nd at 5 o'clock, and April 16th at 6 o'clock. And we will make arrangements to put the dates on the website and to make sure we have those meetings recorded. Very good. Okay, I believe between Tom and Anna, they've spoken to every one of you about the superintendent evaluation documents, and we either have them or I think we're just waiting for 1 or 2, right?
2 people, that's it.
Okay, and you're aware, Tom, so if anybody's having any difficulty, be sure to let Tom know otherwise, because he's got some legwork to do on that. Which brings us to May election. As you know, we have a very important election in May. Hopefully you saw our first article made it into the little paper last week. I heard some nice positive feedback from several different people about the article. And what I asked Sherry to do was to prepare a kind of a draft millage PowerPoint. One of the things that's going to happen, we have probably between 20 and 25 people who have volunteered to be part of the stakeholder committee. And our first stakeholder meeting is going to be at 4 o'clock on February 28th, right here in the board office. And so if anybody else is interested in being on that committee or sitting in on the meeting, it's open to anyone. And that'll be our kind of our organizational meeting where we kind of repeat this PowerPoint, but also talk about ideas to get the word out. And you know, one of the things that the board was adamant about was that we send a simple, consistent message with this millage, and we want to make sure that we have that buttoned down. So with that said, I'd like you to look at this PowerPoint as somewhat of a draft, and feel free to give us a little bit of feedback on your thoughts. I'll turn it
So
over to Sherry.
Carl and I, in conjunction, put this presentation together with the thought that we'd share it with you and then move forward with, as Carl discussed, with our study groups, with our parent meetings, with our principals, because one of the key items I know that we've heard loud and clear from our Board of Education is it needs to be very clear, it needs to be very simple. Sometimes those two words don't go with homestead millages, but I'm going to try to do the best I can, and maybe you could assist me along in the future with how you'd like to see that. So it's real simple. You know, what is a homestead hold harmless tax? It's a, we use the word homestead and hold harmless in conjunction, but it's a levy that is taxed on principal residences, commercial and industrial personal property, supportive housing property, and qualified agriculture and forest property. It was implemented in 1994 with the passage of Proposal A. For Romulus, it expired in September of 2011 after a 10-year stint, and it must be approved by the voters to continue. The current value of this tax to the district is $2,160,000. If you were going to equate it to something in the district, it would be about equatable to the cost of a transportation department here in the district. So for most taxpayers, and your taxpayers as well, you want to know what it looks like for you. How is this going to affect your tax bill? And so we provided a simple display here of home market values anywhere from $40,000 to $120,000. As you know, the typical taxable value is half of that. So again, the taxable value anywhere between $20,000 and $60,000. And you can see the cost per year for a 5.1314 mills is anywhere ranging from a $20,000 taxable value property of $102.63 per year to about $308 if your property value or taxable value is about $60,000. And again, 1 mil represents $1 for every $1,000 of taxable value. And that's using the current taxable values in student enrollment, because if you remember, the 5.1314 mils is based on student enrollment as it is right now.
Sharon,
Yes.
excuse me. I don't know if you caught the typo, but in the little paper, it defines a mill as 1 cent for every $1,000 in value.
I didn't read it yet.
Yeah, so
We can
be
correct that in the
prepared for
future.
those kind of questions.
If someone does ask, you know that it's a representative of $1. Thank you. So what is the district asking for this May? We're asking for 5, and you see the slogan, we wanted to say 5 mills for 5 years, but keep in mind it is 5.1314 what we're authorized right now, or levying right now. It would be for the years 2012 through the year 2016. And I know one of the ballot priorities, and you'll see them in a minute, but was to the district from our board's perspective was that they didn't want an increase in taxes. And this will allow us to do that with current enrollment and current taxable values. Is this a new tax? No, it's not a new tax. This tax expired in September 2011, but has been levied since 1994. This gives you a history of this tax and the value of the levy from 2000 to 2001 all the way up till today. And again, we're still looking to not tax the community more than what we are currently levying this year, 5.1314 mils. Why do we need the homestead hold harmless millage? To preserve our programs that are essential to our students, transportations, small to medium class sizes. As you know, the district is facing financial uncertainty due to declining revenues, property values, and not as much support from the state level as we had seen in the last 5 years or so. We're trying to avoid deficit spending or getting into an emergency financial management position. We have, as a district and as the board, as our leader, have reduced spending over the past 6 years. And we'll look at future reductions as necessary. Just because we pass this millage doesn't mean that we're going to continue to support budgets that exceed revenues. We would do our best to contain costs and cut where we have to cut. But it could mean reductions in transportation. It could mean reductions in extracurricular. And those are just examples, but again, one of the priorities of the board is to preserve programs and maintain facilities and bus fleet and to financially be stable, which is hard to do today. And again, I'm just going over the priorities that we heard from you as a Board of Education. No increases in taxes, preserve our current instructional programs, including transportation and athletics. to maintain our facilities and bus fleet, and have financial stability, basically to keep an emergency financial manager from coming into the district, and to not spend in a deficit. So what will happen if the millage fails? As you saw on an earlier slide, that means a loss of revenue of about $2.1 million for the district. It's about 5.5% of our operating budget. We will not be able to preserve instructional programs as they exist today. I couldn't tell you what they're going to look like. That's something the board would have to discuss if that ever came to fruition. It could be that athletics or extracurricular activities could be caught. Transportation could be in jeopardy, and all major facility repairs would have to be put on hold. And this is where it gets fun. Of course, we have to have official ballot language, which typically gets confusing to people. But the key is that it's not a new tax. It is at the same mills that we're levying in this year currently. It's for 10 years, 2012 to 2016. And again, I already mentioned the value of it. It's about $2.1 million, or 5.5% of our operating budget. And that's the ballot language that the actual taxpayers would vote on. So I'm looking for ideas. What else would you like to see? Would you believe that the taxpayers would understand it? Because again, this is going to be shared with taxpayers. It's going to be shared at parent-teacher meetings, our study groups as we go around the community. So I'm looking for feedback. We can do that now. You can also send it to me in the future if you'd like, if you want to think about it.
Madam Chair, I got a couple questions.
Mr. Cootery?
Well, first of all, you want constructive and
I
everything? Okay, first of all, the slide with the chart with all the different breakdowns, 2040, I like that because a lot of people always wanted to know what their house was because their house may at one time was 120, now it's went down a little bit, and it gives everybody a more understanding because if they're between 20 and 40 and 60 or 68, they got a better perspective of what it's going to look like. One thing I'd like to see, we talked about the budget of the reduction, maybe put up what the budget numbers were in 2006, what we used to have, and
So
what we have now.
So give a graph of the history
Right.
like we did with the tax levy. Maybe show.
2006 and then
Sure.
what we have, what we're working with now. To
The
actually,
operating budget.
the operating budget to actually
That would
show.
be easy.
One thing that I did not like that kind of turned me was your last slide that you had where it showed transportation in jeopardy. If we could possibly put something different there because it kind of sounds a little
Okay.
threatening to a small group, and we don't want to sound threatening to anybody, but I mean, I like the comparison of the 2.1 million to equal the transportation, what it costs to operate it, because people in the community need to know, but maybe not putting, the extracurricular, athletics, band, lists and things like that, maybe after-school programs, whatever it is, but to kind of isolate transportation at all, I don't think that would be a smart thing to leave up there. That's
Okay.
just my opinion.
Okay.
I agree.
I agree.
A lot of people feel like if the kids are gonna be home because there's no transportation, why have the schools open? They consider transportation as a necessity, not a luxury.
And I think, again, that was listed there because we did make we tried to show it as it's equatable to that. So we could take that out and definitely leave in, maybe even put some other scenarios in, that this is the value of X equals, $2.1 million as well.
Madam Chair.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Thank you. I would agree. I think the minute we put out the word transportation, that's going to be all people hear, and they're going to perceive it as a threat. I personally, and I know Tom's been asking for this for months. I think the board needs to give the administration clearer direction on just what we're willing to live with putting on the block before this is done. And I know that puts everybody at the 8 ball because now, 2 weeks from now, you're having this meeting. But I know, it's been brought up several times. We need to identify what we're willing to live with, and that meeting needs to be scheduled for May 9th. The day after the millage election, bang. Because voters need to understand that we're not crying wolf here. The only other suggestion or strategy I would offer, I would lose all reference to 16.63. That's an inflammatory number. People are going to read that. They're not going to care that that's a historic number that we've never levied. They're gonna see that number, zero in on it, and block everything else out.
Yeah, I think we've already
Now-
taken it out of there.
It's not in the presentation.
No,
Okay.
it's not, but I'm saying,
Is it discussions?
future things and discussion when you have the stakeholders meetings, I wouldn't even go there unless